I actually have full goosebumps. I don't know if you can see them.
I can actually. I can see little hairs lifting.
Full on goosebumps. Honestly, it was one of those things which was love at first sight, I feel like, and that sounds so cliche, but we have really been inseparable from the start. I spotted Paul and apparently I gave him like the head nod and I picked him up, and I guess the rest is history. It was one of those moments where I'm like, holy shit, like our life is about to change. And I was just thinking, how on earth do we get this sperm? Like, I know it's possible, what on earth do we do? Honestly, I'll try not to cry. I'm so hormonal at the moment because I'm still breastfeeding.
Tell me how you're feeling in the lead up to your first Mother's Day as a mum.
It might be the most incredible time for some women, but it also is like one of the hardest times, probably if not the hardest time of the year. I want to be able to speak to the masses and make these hard topics like miscarriage and grief and fertility like easily accessible, almost like you are talking to your sister.
Chloe Fisher, welcome to the Stella podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's nice to see you. You are in a podcast studio in the Gold Coast. I'm in a podcast studio in Sydney. We can't be in the same room today. Well, for many reasons. You have a young family, a logistically very challenging schedule. But this morning you have been on location with Stella, shooting the cover of today's Stella, with your husband Paul, better known to the world as Fisher, and your beautiful daughter Bobbi. I have seen some of the photos they've come in. Of course, the whole world has seen them this morning. Got to ask you, how was it? How was Bobbi? Was she ready for her close-up?
It was actually such a beautiful morning. Like it's a funny one. Those morning shoots are always a little bit. I'm thinking, how is she going to go? Because she usually has a nap at 8:30, 9 a.m. Like call time's 9 a.m. for Bobbi, and I'm just like. She actually had a little nap in the morning and then, she rocked up, great mood. We all had our little outfits and she was such an angel. The team was so, so wonderful to work with. Like every single person on the set was amazing. It was not too fast paced, like everything was thought out. The photographer, he's amazing, Chris. We've worked with him before actually.
Yeah, he's great.
Love his energy. And everyone was just happy days. Bobbi was great. There was 3 shots and she just absolutely nailed it. So I told her she can have a little bit of a break from photo shoots. So she went home and had her nap.
That's good. That's what we tell all the top models on set, isn't it? Just get through this one. You can go home and have a nap. Chloe, the photos are very joyous, and I think just looking at you and your beautiful young family would bring a smile, I think, to anyone's face. And I was thinking as I was looking at the images that we need a bit of that in the world at the moment. As you and I are talking in April, it just feels like it's not been the easiest of years globally for a lot of people. And so I think on this Easter weekend, it's always lovely, especially in the lead up to Mother's Day, which I'll talk to you a bit more, to have something a bit light. So if you wouldn't mind, I thought maybe we could start with where this beautiful photo began, which is, of course, going back to when you were on holidays and you first met your now husband, Paul. And this was before he would become global superstar, DJ Fisher. You were on holidays. You were only 20. Can you tell me a little bit about meeting Paul? And did you ever expect to meet the love of your life on holidays when you're just 20?
No, I absolutely did not. I'd actually just come out of a long-term relationship from school and I was on a girls' holiday and, just doing what girls do, running around. We're actually in Bali on Poppy's Lane and there's a bar called Alley Cats and I spotted Paul. It's so funny, everyone freaks out when I call him Paul because no one calls him Paul except for me, so Fisher. I spotted him at this bar and apparently I gave him like the head nod and I picked him up, and I guess the rest is history. We spent the rest of the holiday together. We this is actually before Instagram, or he actually had a BlackBerry, believe it or not. It was very strange. I
love the BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry.
He had a BlackBerry. So I think I actually started his Instagram account on that trip. That's like how long ago it was. But yeah, we just randomly always be at the same restaurants or cafes. I'm like, is this guy stalking me? Can you please leave me alone? I'm on a girls' trip. But it was just like, honestly, it was one of those things which was love at first sight, I feel like. And that sounds so cliche, but we have really been inseparable from the start. He actually lived in America. I lived in Australia. And I thought, this is never going to work. And, you know, fast forward 12 or 13 years later, we've seen the world together. We've gone through some insane ups and downs. And, you know, now we've found ourselves with our beautiful baby girl, Bobbi. And it's just, life is really good. And we're just so happy. And I couldn't be more grateful for my little family.
I wanted to ask you about that 13 years since then and some of the ups and downs and just how your lives have respectively changed so much for each of you, and the work that you've done. But also, of course, as you say, your beautiful daughter Bobbi being born last year. But Chloe, I've just got to go back to that meeting. You mentioned, but Paul says that you picked him up a head nod. There must have been some head nod. Any tips for anyone watching this that's thinking, okay, I've got to know what was Chloe's secret?
Oh, well, he was eating meatballs. I was drinking probably my 100th vodka double. And if anyone knows Alley Cats, they're these like, I think they're like triple shot vodkas with one shot of Red Bull. And like they used to get these packet mixes of like energy sachets called Extra Joss. And that's what we used to have. And I reckon I was probably 100 of those deep. And I just had all the confidence in the world. And I eyed him off and I knew his friends actually. So I was kind of like, where is this going to go? And yeah, I just looked at him, made eye contact, did the nod, and yeah, the rest is history. I don't know how great of a nod it was, but obviously it was pretty good.
It was a nod that definitely set a lot of things in motion. I would, as I said, I'd love to ask you a little bit about the personal evolution for each of you, for you, of course, and the career that you've built, and then your marriage. And as I said, when you and Paul first met, he was not who the world knows him as today, as you say, Fisher, globally famous DJ. What's it been like, Chloe, being there in that partnership, seeing that career take off, that profile take off? Has fame been difficult for you to navigate as his partner in life? And how has it changed your relationship, but also how has it not changed your relationship, and how has it not changed the core of who you are as individuals and who you are as a couple?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So when we first met, he was a professional surfer on the surfing tour. He lived in San Diego, down that way in the States. And when I moved over to the States, I quit my job. I was previously working at ACP magazines in the advertising department. Quit my job, followed the love of my life, landed in America with no job. And he actually got fired, got let go of his sponsorship deal with the brand that he was sponsored by for surfing. So we found ourselves in this position where we were like, awesome, we both live here. I can't work because I don't have a visa. You don't have a job. We've got no money. What are we going to do? And so he was originally DJing in a group called Cut Snake with one of his really good friends, Lee Sedley from the Gold Coast. They're both from Queensland. And so that sort of like evolved over a couple of years. It was at that point in my life that I thought, I've always been a go-getter. I've always loved starting businesses. I'm addicted to work, and I'm addicted. I'm not going to say I wish I wasn't, but because I love it. I honestly love working. And so I thought, what am I going to do with myself? Can't be working here. It needs to be like an internationally sort of thing. So I actually started a swimwear label called Elodie Swimwear, and I borrowed $5,000 off Paul, probably his last $5,000, $5,000 off my grandparents, and yeah, Elodie Swimwear was born. And I did that. I ran that business until 2019. So it would have been 2013 to 2019. And I sold it a month before I got married. And so I was doing that while I was on the road. It was extremely rewarding because I taught myself everything from the start to finish. And in the background, he was sort of like trying to establish himself in the DJ scene. He then got this slot to play at Coachella one year, and there's a stage called the Do Lab, and it's like a free stage. You don't get paid to play there. It's sort of like a bit of a side stage situation. And this was one of his first shows as Fisher. And I remember he turned around to myself, his manager, his agent, his PR rep, as he mid-set, as he was playing, he turned around and said to us, guys, watch this. And we're thinking, what on earth is he going to do? Like, wasn't sure where that was going to go. And he played Losing It for the first time on stage. And I've never, still to this day, I have never seen a crowd erupt like it, ever. I actually have full goosebumps. I don't know if you can see them. That's crazy.
I can actually. I can see little hairs
full-on
lifting.
goosebumps. And that was the moment that changed our whole entire life. The following weekend, someone pulled out of the Yuma tent in Coachella, and because he was the most talked about person from, or artist from the week before, they were like, we need to get this Fisher guy this slot. And so he got upgraded from the Do Lab to the Yuma tent, and everyone wanted to see him the following week and see this Losing It track. And sure enough, the tent was absolutely rammed to the edges. It was to the point where people, like, because they actually had to close it off because it was like safety issues because there was too many people trying to get in. And people were like climbing underneath the walls of the tent. And it was so unbelievable. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, holy shit, like our life is about to change. And at that point, we were back and forth to Australia. We didn't really have a home because we actually didn't really have any money. We literally had nothing. So we lived with my parents, and I'm one of 4 kids. So it was my 2 sisters, brother, myself, Paul in the front room, our dog. It was like a full-on Brady Bunch scenario. And then we graduated out of mum and dad's house. This is like a 27 or 28-year-old man living with his girlfriend's parents. It was just, and my mum and my dad are like the best, but like it's full on. And then, yeah, we moved into like a little shack in Narrabeen where I grew up. And again, it was just really hard because we were just seriously living out of suitcases in Airbnbs. And then I guess my profile sort of started growing alongside his, and, you know, the fame thing, it's funny because his fans are different. They see him online and they think he's this insanely crazy person. So quite often people just come up and just scream in his face. And we're like, whoa. But like, I think that's the persona that he portrays, you know. However, he's like the most down-to-earth, kindest, softest. He's a Scorpio. So he's very like private, believe it or not, in a weird way. As much as our life is so public, when we're at home, we don't really see many people. Like, we are so happy just to spend time together and just do things, the two of us, because we don't ever really get that. And, you know, we're always constantly around so many people, so much energy, and it is very chaotic and very full on. So when we do have our downtime, we want to really treat it as like serious downtime.
And you were saying when Fisher's fans approach him that they assume that there's this sort of persona, and so they're very in your face and very out there and wild, very different to when people approach you. What is if there is such a thing as the average reaction when one of your fans, one of your followers comes up to you?
I actually find it really difficult. I'm a public figure. I'm on my podcast. I share my whole life, you know, on there. So you'd think that I would accept it a little better. But I feel it definitely takes me back a little bit because I forget that I'm sitting on here and telling my whole life to everyone. Whereas I think, and they also forget, I think when they run up to me, oh my God, I love you. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm your best friend because I know everything about you. But it is great. Like, and I'm so proud of the community that Elodie and I have created on Darling Shine. It's like a sisterhood, and it's often quite tough conversations though with my fans who come up and want to speak to me. And, you know, like quite often I will be in nightclubs, and, you know, it's actually really challenging for me because when I was going through my back-to-back miscarriages and fertility issues, and people feel like, you know, everyone's got their story, and so they see me out in public and they're like, oh my God, I'm going through this, or I've had this, and they come and they give you their whole story. And, you know, it can often at times be extremely triggering. like it's different now because I have Bobbi, but I feel like before I had Bobbi and when I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, when people will come in and like, and I hate saying this, trauma dumping, when they come and dump that on you, it's so hard because you want to be there to support them, you're trying to protect yourself. Like it was actually, I found it really challenging, but I also, and that's why I do my podcast, because I want to be able to get out here and I want to be able to speak to the masses and make these hard topics like miscarriage and grief and fertility like easily accessible, almost like you are talking to your sister. But yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, because like I want to talk to everyone and I want to make them feel comfortable and I want to make them feel seen and heard, but it's actually a really hard conversation to have in person with strangers, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense, and I think it's such a great issue to bring up because, like you say, it's a complicated conversation to have in some ways. It's a bit like if someone is, say, talking about fame and they've built a career and, you know, it might be like an Oscar-winning actor, and then they go, but then with the fame has come a real challenge and I can't walk out, to my mailbox, if people ever use mailbox anymore, and people sort of go, oh, it's this sort of tussle and a dichotomy. It's almost, you can't have one without the other, and it's a bit the same. It's such important work to have these conversations and make, especially with your audience, women feel seen and feel heard. And we talk a lot on this podcast about some of these conversations around fertility and navigating miscarriage and the strength that we draw from one another with that vulnerability and candor. But with it, Chloe, does bring a pressure because there is that vicarious trauma element of people talking to you. So I think it's sort of like a bit like fame is the flip side of massive success. Possibly dealing with other people's stories is the flip side of the work that you've done.
Yeah, it is. And it's like another thing as well that I find so challenging, and I have up until today, is like I was very vocal about sharing things on the internet and sharing things on social media, because I know how hard it is to read, pregnancy announcements. And, I went through that for 5 years and I really struggle. Like I do share a lot of my family and I do share a lot of Bobbi, but I deep down, like I have this, like, it is really hard because I just want to be so considerate of other people. And I know how difficult it is, like, when that's all you see. And I don't know, maybe that's just me. And I've really struggled with that with our podcast and, how to go from here on out, because, a lot of our listeners are trying to conceive, and it is really tough. It's like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I think you can't win everyone, but we try.
It's so true. And it's also, again, this is a conversation that I think a lot of us are navigating in the media, is also the joy, and where I started our conversation with that cover shoot today, and the happiness of this moment in your life and this beautiful family that you've created, is that surely there is a way, and you are entitled to a way to have that joy and share that happiness with your followers and your audience, and with people that simply just love basking in someone else's happiness, in the way that sometimes is what a magazine cover does. You might not even know the person, but also to do that with empathy and consideration. So I would argue, for what it's worth, Chloe, even you acknowledging that that particular aspect of your story where you are today could be triggering or bring up things for people, just to even acknowledge that, I think, is huge progress from where we were as individuals and a community even 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I try and also tell myself too, and, if anyone else is going through the same thing, it's like, try and be able to be proud of, like, even though we've gone through all these hardships and we've shared so much sad and hard times and griefy times and trauma times, but you should be allowed to celebrate the wins. And like I find it hard to, but I try my best to be so proud of how far I've come, and if anything, my story can give people hope, because in those trenches, like, you do not see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I didn't. And I did look up to these people that tried went through the trials of infertility for so long and thought, if they can get there, I can do this as well. And so, if I'm giving anything back to people, like hopefully I can just be a little bit of hope, to keep going.
Absolutely. And there is so much hope in your story. And I think especially as we approach Mother's Day, which is in a few weeks. And Chloe, this will be your first Mother's Day since Bobbi was born, June of last year. In fact, you're going to be part of the Iconics Mother's Day 2025 campaign. Mother's Day, again, something that I know you and I both acknowledge has got conflicted feelings for something you talk a lot about these issues on your platforms. We talk about it, but the hard-won joy of that moment. Tell me how you're feeling in the lead up to your first Mother's Day as a mum.
Oh, honestly, I'll try not to cry. I'm so hormonal at the moment because I'm still breastfeeding. But yeah, it's seriously one of the most surreal moments I have. And I say this exactly coming off the back of what we're just talking about. It might be the most incredible time for some women, but it also is like one of the hardest times, probably if not the hardest time of the year for a lot. And for me to be coming into my first Mother's Day with Bobbi on my hip and, Paul by my side, I honestly, I've never felt so much gratitude in my life. I have dreamt for this moment forever, like for as long as I can ever remember. And yeah, Bobbi's such a beautiful little girl. She's such a kind little soul. And to be, I honestly look at her every day when I'm feeding her and like she's holding my finger or she makes me hold her foot every time I feed her. It's like this weird little thing that she has. And just, I'm like, how did I get so lucky? And, I did a Mother's Day shoot a couple of years ago with Elodie and who's my podcast host who lost her partner, and her little girl, Minnie, who's my goddaughter. And, I went through so much to get to where I am today. But these people who we did the shoot with were so kind to include me in this shoot because they're like, you're a mum, you're still a mum to Minnie. We look at, there's so many different types of mums in the world. You're not just the mother of your child, you're the mother of your friends' children's and your siblings' children's. And, it takes a tribe. Like I can't take all the recognition because I tell you right now, I thought I could do it all and I absolutely cannot do it all. And, shout out to my mum, my husband's mum. Like, seriously, I honestly thought it was going to be much easier than what it is. And I have to admit, it's definitely a challenge, but the best challenge ever. But, it definitely takes a tribe. So as much as I am grateful coming into Mother's Day, and I am so excited to, share this cover shoot with you and the iconic shoot, and even just to have these photos to look back on memories of myself and Bobbi and Paul together. Like, how lucky are we? It's so, so great. I'm so happy.
Chloe, you mentioned your dear friend Ellidy Pullin and your beautiful goddaughter Minnie, and I would love just to talk a little bit about that and in fact the role that you played in Elodie bringing her daughter Minnie into the world. And of course for people that aren't across the story, which obviously your dear friend Ellidy Pullin, her late partner Alex Chumpy Pullin, the Olympic snowboarder, was tragically killed in 2020. And you helped Elodie retrieve Chumpy's sperm in the immediate hours after that tragic news, which is the direct role I was talking about in the conception and birth of Minnie. I understand, Chloe, you called 5 clinics in those hours. Can I ask you just to take us back a little bit inside that, because to be in those hours for your best friend, obviously her grief is unimaginable. You too, though, are reeling from that devastating news. And to have the foresight and the clarity and then the practical sense to be knowing who to phone, would love for you just to take us back to that moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's still crazy to this day. I actually still can't believe it happened. It's so wild. And, Elodie was 28 years old when she lost the love of her life and became a widow. And she actually texted me that day. I was out for lunch and she said, Chumpy's died. And I literally texted her back saying, you're having a laugh. Like, and she's like, no, actually, this is what's happened. And I called straight away and I spoke to her brother. He actually passed away, in a shallow water blackout while he was spearfishing. He basically held his breath for too long and blacked out. And because he was alone, he sunk because he had a weight belt on. Now, Elodie and Chumpy had been trying for a baby for a really long time, and they were sort of at their next steps because she was struggling to conceive as well, and their next steps were IVF. But when he passed away, a friend of a friend knew of a scenario where the woman was able to retrieve the man's sperm after he passed away. And I think you have about 36 hours once someone passes away to retrieve the sperm. Luckily in Elodie and Chumpy's case is that he was actually still wearing a wetsuit, so it kept his body quite warm. So we actually had I think we had a little tiny bit more time, but I think it was like the 36th hour that we were able to retrieve that. And essentially, Elodie's mum, Elodie's brother, myself and a few of our other friends were just sort of scrambling. And this is well before my time of doing IVF. I've now done 8 rounds of IVF, so I know that like the back of my hand now. But when this happened 5 years ago, I had never called an IVF clinic in my life, and I was just thinking, how on earth do we get this sperm? Like, I know it's possible, what on earth do we do? And I just instinctively was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start cold calling IVF clinics, and Googled IVF clinic Gold Coast and called up, I think 5, and they were like, no. It was a Thursday afternoon, I think. No, it was actually a Thursday morning when he passed away. So by the time it actually wasn't until the following day that this all sort of kicked into gear, because someone suggested it to me. And I actually said no at the very beginning. Someone's like, we need to get his sperm. And I was like, as if that's happening. I'm like, look at her. Like, I can't ask. For some reason at the time, it was a very weird thing to ask. Like, I was like, absolutely not. It was like a hard no. But then as the day went on and the night went on and, it was all sort of starting to like sink in, it was like, I couldn't have been more sure of something. I was like, oh my God, yes, absolutely. We need to do this. We need to make it happen. And Dr. Davidson, he's now retired. He ended up doing the procedure. They got his sperm. They put it, I think they froze it straight away. And she actually, a lot of people were saying it's called post-mortem sperm retrieval. We also had to get lawyers involved. It's funny, all of my friends call me Steve Jobs because I just go straight into job mode like that. I've got a lot of weaknesses, but my strengths in life are like getting shit done, to-do lists, spreadsheets, like I can just do it. I just go into overdrive and I enjoy that stuff. So we got it all done. We got his sperm, and a lot of people were saying you should wait, like you're so in your grief and your trauma, Elodie, like this isn't the right time, like you need to wait, like you cannot have a baby right now. And she was like, no, you know what, this is the right time. Like, I'm not doing this to save me, like I'm doing this to bring back a part of him. And like, we were trying for a baby and we were so in love, and I couldn't be more proud to give birth to his child and be able to continue with his legacy through Minnie. And so she was a surprise. And then Minnie Alex Pullin was born in October. And the rest is history. How old is she now? She just turned 3 last October, and she's just the cutest thing. Paul and I are her godparents, and we couldn't have been more proud. And, I often say that I went through as much as I went through because I always try to look for silver linings in everything that I went through, because I can't quite work out that really got me through. And I always thought, maybe I wasn't meant to have a baby back then. Maybe I had to wait to have my baby so I could help Elodie bring up Minnie and be there for Minnie. And Paul and I, we brought Minnie and Elodie around the world with us, and we thrive off being this crazy modern family. Like, the relationship that we all have together, like Elodie and Paul are best friends. Elodie and I are best friends and business partner. We often laugh. We're like, we're so opposite, but we just work. And it's so beautiful to see like Minnie in Bobbi's life and how obsessed Bobbi is looking up to Minnie. And we've definitely got such a cute little unit going. And like, I'm very grateful to have all of them in my life. Like, I'm very lucky.
I mean, just what an amazing example and tribute your story is to friendship. My opening question to you was about the beautiful family shoot with you and Paul and Bobbi and meeting the love of your life when you were 20. But Chloe, just to talk about the other loves of our lives that keep us going through the darkest moments. If a person is so blessed to have that sort of friendship and for you to be there for Elodie in that moment and the way that you've been there for one another, that's so inspiring. And I know I used the word inspiring a couple of times in this conversation, but it's impossible, I would imagine, to look back 5 years ago at that relationship being forged in fire so much, already so close. Your friendship must be almost impossible to describe to people.
We speak every day on text. It's hard when we're away on different time zones. But yeah, our relationship is indescribable. Like we seriously joke about it. We're like, even just being a business partner with anyone is, hard work. And we somehow have overcome so many obstacles together, like on a business front. And then on a friendship front, we gravitate towards each other so much. It's because we do bicker like siblings. Like I actually think I argue with her more than I argue with my sister, but we get over it. We move on. We're actually really good at communicating now. So if I've got a problem, I'll let her know and vice versa. But yeah, on the topic of Mother's Day, I just want to say how after becoming a mother, how much I look at her and, you say inspiring, and like I'm inspired by that girl every single day. Like for what she has done and the life that she has created for her little girl and herself, being a single mum, the only breadwinner, like it is seriously unbelievable. And to call her my best mate, I am so, so proud. Like she is the best mum. She juggles every single thing within her household. She pays all the bills. I think she's got 3 mortgages. She's got 3 homes. Like she is such a weapon, and like, good for her. Look at her kicking goals and doing it. She's not alone, but like, she is alone. She hasn't got her partner to cheer her on when she gets into bed at night or, when she has these small victories. Obviously she has Paul and I and like the tribe, but it would be so hard to be a widow and have this beautiful little girl who is at this age where she's asking for her dad and asking, about him. And I can see in Elodie's eyes, as much as she looks like this big, happy, vibrant person, which she is, she still struggles. She doesn't get to go home at night and cuddle him or, we still like talk about Chumpy so much with Minnie, but we always say, she says, my daddy's in the sky. Daddy's in the sky. And we like wave to daddy in the sky. And like, she's just becoming, so inquisitive. Like she just wants to know a lot. And I think at that age, but there's a little girl that goes to her kindy that also doesn't have a daddy. And so I feel like they find their little, comfort within each other. But yeah, it's really beautiful what she's created, and I'm bloody proud of her, seriously.
And you described yourself there as sisters in some ways, in that bickering component, which is, as somebody who's in me extremely close to my sister, I think the bickering is part of it, isn't it? The greatest love and support. They're the people that know you better than anyone. But on the subject of sisters, I obviously then Bobbi being born last June, and with Minnie, 2 little girls, that's a beautiful sister component again coming through the next generation, isn't it?
We're so happy. And Paul's the best girl dad ever. Like he is so obsessed with his girls. Like I can't even imagine him with a boy because he's just so good with the girls. And, we always joke about Minnie and Bobbi running the club guest list when they're older and who's going to be boss. And, it's so funny. Their little relationship together is so beautiful, and we're really practicing being gentle with each other, and like they're pretty rough, the 2 of them. Elodie's rough. Elodie's rough with me. So Minnie's exactly like her mum, but Bobbi's like getting a bit older now, and she's, they're rumbling and they're just so cute. Bobbi just stares and watches Minnie. Everything that she does, it's like what's she doing, must be touching her, you know, pulls her clothes, and Minnie's not happy about her pulling her clothes. And it's just so cute to see, and it's beautiful to be a part of.
I love that. And the touching the clothes and no, I'm not happy with that. Is that
Don't touch
sisterhood
me.
in a nutshell, isn't it, Chloe?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to just then start finishing up our conversation by just coming back a little bit to today and your life and your family, because we talked about how things have changed so much for you there over the last 13 years when you first met Paul, and then, of course, the family that you've created. You talked about your work ethic, and it sounds also like another component that has taken you through different twists and turns over the last 13 years professionally has been a capacity for reinvention. I don't know if that's a word that you would agree with, but I think the fact that you have really created your own platforms and continue to work, and there's always the juggle that we always ask about, which of course I'm going to ask about for everyone, especially when you are in you do have a partner and they're traveling a lot, and their job is, let's be honest, not a 9 to 5 that Fisher has. So a lot of different threads in that question. To distill it down, how is the juggle for you both? Because I hate asking that question of a mum and then not asking it for the dad. So, but obviously you're the person that I'm speaking to, so I want to know about your experience, but of course how you, collectively handle that juggle. Because as you said, motherhood, it's wonderful and complex and all of the things, but it can be much harder than we think until we get there.
Yeah, it is certainly, that would be an understatement, a juggle, where I actually took some time off the podcast this year to just try and focus on being a mum. So the first 6 months, where, Elody's taken the reins and I've jumped on a few podcasts. So I've kind of was trying to give myself that space. However, I found myself doing more. Paul said to me the other day, he's like, you've taken a break from the podcast, but you're busier than you've ever been. And I don't know whether it's because, yes, I am busy, but like I've got a baby as well. So she is full on at the moment. She's 9 months and there's zero chill zone. So I don't have a full-time nanny or anything like that. I've kind of tried to establish this balance where it's when I'm with Bobbi, I'm fully present. Like I don't have to be perfect, but I'd have to be present, and that's important to me. And then I have my business side of things where I'm working with some incredible brands. I'm doing some amazing collaborations coming up, which I'm so excited to share. Paul and I have been working on property development, which is crazy because that's massive. It's a whole nother ball game, but we've just launched our first property here on the Gold Coast, which we've been designing for the last 2 years, and that just launched a couple of weeks ago. And then I'm actually writing a book, which is coming out at the end of this year. So yeah, I'm actually have to finish the manuscript mid-April, so that's exciting. There's so much going on, but I was trying to have this, you'd call it balance, but I was finding there was so much resistance trying to do it all. But I had to sit down with myself and give myself a talking to and going, what is going on? Why is there so much resistance? Why is there so much pull? Where is this coming from? And, I got to the conclusion that I need to be able to work and be excited to work, and it's okay to work. Instead of being you shouldn't be doing that, you should be being a mum. So, I kind of came to that realization that it's okay to enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it's okay to get help if I need to get help with Bobbi. I've got the most incredible tribe around me. I have my mom when I need, often on a Tuesday, I'll get all my meetings and try and jam pack everything in on Tuesday, and I'll get a babysitter for a few hours, but rely on people around me. That's been really important to me, and, thriving in my job and thriving in what I do. And I'm so passionate about work and working with amazing brands and giving it my all. So, just as much putting my eggs in the mum basket, I'm putting my eggs in my work basket. And I'm honestly in the best place I have ever been in like life, but also in work. Like I'm looking at myself from 5 years ago and going, holy shit, it's all lining up and everything's coming true. Everything that I wish for is happening. So I'm in a really good place, and I'm so bloody proud of myself. And I'm just so excited to see what the future, what lies ahead for me.
Absolutely. And I'm glad, because you should be proud of yourself. And I think also as mums, I'm generalising here, but we are so hard on ourselves. I don't know that I've ever met a mother
absolutely.
that isn't hard on herself. So I'll make the disclaimer, but I'm not sure it's necessary. And you are also showing Bobbi what's possible in so many ways as somebody that is juggling it, even though it is intense. And I think sometimes we have to give ourselves credit for that as well. Chloe, funny when you mentioned the getting into property now, you and Paul, and I thought, wow, what a turnaround from sharing that room at your parents' house along with the siblings. So again, a lot can change. Obviously, there's also just the practical component of your life. Your role obviously has involved travel over the years, but of course Paul's particularly. Have you thought a little bit about what that's going to look like, especially in the creative industries? It's always a bit of a thing because obviously in the early years they can be a bit portable, to be honest. The kids and toddlers. Not always easy to sit on a plane with them long haul, but they are once before they start school. So just on that sort of pragmatic level, where are you thinking that life might start to look in a few years?
Yeah, honestly, that's like the $1 million question. I can't see Paul slowing down anytime soon. There's the big DJs that are old these days, and he's like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be DJing in Ibiza when I'm 60. So that'll be interesting. But I don't know, like I'm thinking when we get to Ibiza, because we do 6 months of the year in Ibiza every year because he plays every Thursday from 3 till 5 a.m., the happy hour. And I don't go to all those shows anymore. That's no way. But I don't know, I'm sort of even just looking into some childcare in Ibiza because I want Bobbi to be around children, and it is a bit hard when we're over there because there's not that many kids over there to hang out with. But I honestly think I'm going to probably have to do a bit of homeschooling here and there and sweet talk a few schools here on the Gold Coast. When we get home, can we just whack her in there when we're here? I don't even know how that works, and people might blow up at me going, that's not how it works. But I don't know, we're so fluid, and we just want to go with the flow, and we don't really have to think about that too seriously just yet. We've still got a few more years, but we want the best for Bobbi, and we will do the best for her at the time. So who knows what school's going to be like in 5 years? Hopefully it's not all portable, but you never know.
This is the thing. I mean, life has changed so much in what is possible now. And if you look at what the pandemic and the things that has changed in terms of disruption, where people work and how people navigate their lives, I agree, Chloe. Who knows what things will look like by the time you're enrolling Bobbi in kindergarten. I wish you all the best for your first Mother's Day, and thank you for your candour, but your generosity, and I think your compassion, your empathy shines through. So for you, it is a really hard one, hopefully blissful day this year. And of course, you can see Chloe in the Iconics 2025 Mother's Day campaign. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. Chloe Fisher, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for putting us on your cover for Mother's Day. What an iconic little moment for us as a fam. Thank you so much for having me. I love that chat.
It's a pleasure.